So we begin with today's presentation, and this is called the prescription audit. Now, this is the scheme of presentation, and we will cover these points. We will talk about the definitions. We'll look at the prerequisite for the audit. We'll look at the screening population and how to do a sample size, how to take the sample size. We'll look at the checkpoints or the parameters for audit, the corrective and preventive actions. We'll also look at a sample data collection sheet and the data analysis. By definition, a prescription audit is a quality improvement process that seeks to improve patient care. So please remember that every audit that we do in the hospital setting, for any purpose, if it is an audit which is going to be done for the purpose of improving the in the hospital, then unless it is directed towards improvement of patient care, it doesn't help. So we must always remember that audits are a tool to improve the patient care. A bad prescription can cause misuse, overuse, or underuse of medications, and will lead to unsafe treatment. It will lead to exacerbations of disease or the health hazard. It might increase the medication errors or the adverse events. It will have the economic burden on the patients, and it amounts to wastage of resources. So what are the prerequisites for audit? Now these prerequisites are applicable to just about any audit. I mean, in the health system, when we do audit, you know by definition that audit is almost always a retrospective review. Now, how will you get a retrospective review? The retrospective review is only possible when we have a record keeping system. If we don't record anything, you will not have any base or any document to do the audit. So record keeping system is absolutely necessary. The next is, it should be carried out by fair and impartial professionals. Generally, you do not have a situation where, so it should be carried out by fair and impartial persons. Normally, the audit is not carried out by the person who has carried out that activity. So if a doctor's prescription or if the prescription from a particular specialty you're going to audit, do not have people from the same department doing the audit, because then you are not likely to get the correct findings. Therefore, the impartial people are required, and this person also should preferably be trained in the audit methodologies, how to take a sample, how to collect the data, and how to do the analysis. If they are not trained, then you are not going to benefit from the audit activity that you will implement. The clinicians, nursing, and other staff, as well as patients' anonymity is to be maintained. Now, in the health system, any audit that we carry out, those audits should never end up in a situation where we are, pointing finger at somebody. That is the reason why we need to have a totally anonymous system where neither the doctor's identification is recorded, nor the nurse's identification is recorded, and nor the patient identification is recorded. So patient identification is purely from the confidentiality and the privacy point of view, but the doctors and the nurses' information is not captured, essentially to ensure that you do not have an opportunity to take the punitive action. Because remember, all healthcare interventions in terms of improving the patient care have to be non-punitive in nature. None of these actions, none of these audits, if they find errors, they should result in punishment. If they result in punishment, you are guaranteed that your systems will never improve, because next time onwards, people will stop reporting, as simple as that. Initiative must come from within. So to do an audit, it is the internal requirement. It is the internal requirement of the quality system. The hospital itself must embark on the audit journeys. Now, we can say that here the NABH is demanding an audit, and therefore we are doing because we have to comply with NABH diktats, if I can use these words. But please remember, the NABH accreditation itself is a voluntary process. So if we have volunteered, then obviously the initiative has come from within. The purpose should be simple and clearly stated. So what is it that we are trying to do the audit? So in the case of prescription audit, we say that we are doing prescription audit in order to improve the medication management in the hospital. So improving the medication management is improving the patient care, and this is the purpose of doing the audit. I hope I'm clear in explaining, and also you are able to hear it clearly. Is that fine? I mean, you can hear the sound well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, thank you very much. And the last point is that intention should be to effect the change for better. So what is the intention? The intention is to improve the system, not to find a person to whom a punishment can be given, and therefore we are hunting that person down. Don't do that. Never ever do that, because the moment you do that, you have a situation where the improvements will stop happening. You will have a quality system which will start failing the moment you start penalizing people. You start making it punitive in nature. Okay, so here is the table that is given in the NABH book as well. This is a table which tells you what should be the sample size for a given population. Now, NABH says that you must do a prescription audit and the medication order audit every month. So let us take the example of a prescription audit. Now, prescription audit is done for prescriptions written in the OPD. The medication orders audit is done for those medication orders which are written in the inpatient files. So these are two different set of sources of data, and therefore we will consider them differently. The NABH standard does not say that you should do medication order and the prescription audit both in the same month. So what you can do is, possibly you can do in 1 month medication order audit, in the other month prescription audit, and alternate them. So in one prescription audit, you will be analyzing the data for previous 2 months. So let us say in your OPD, you have a decent good footfall, and you see, let us say, 250 patients on an average every day. Various OPDs, all of them put together. So we have in our OPD, we are generating close to 250 prescriptions every day, in every OPD day. Okay. And how many OPD days do we have in a month? How many OPD days we have in a month? 6,000, 25 OPD days. So we are generating 6,250 prescriptions every month. Somebody has to switch the microphone into mute mode. Just a moment. Yes. So so we have 6,250 prescriptions in a month. And remember, we started that we will do 1 month, we will do medication order audit, and 1 month we will do prescription audit. So when in the month that you are doing prescription audit, you will have 2 months data. So what is the total number of prescriptions population you have? 6,250 into 2. Isn't it? 2 months? Understandable?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Understandable? Easy to work out? Now, for 6,250 into 2, that means 12,500 is your total population size. What is the sample size for 10,000 population? In the table on the screen, it is 385. And the sample size for 20,000 is 392. See, very little difference between the two, a difference of only 7. So if you take a sample size of 400, will this be a sufficient sample size for our requirement? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I hope everyone is getting it. If somebody is not getting it, because this is where maximum confusion lies. The rest of it is very simple. So we have to take 400 samples out of 12,500 total prescriptions that we have. Till this point, no issue? I'm asking.
Clear, sir. No issues.
Okay. Now the next is which 400 prescriptions you will pick up. So we come to statistical sample. So Priya Loddaji, the question that you have asked in the chat box is exactly what we are trying to do. So if you have heard it so far, you would have seen that our prescription population for 2 months is 12,500. For that sample, based on this table that is given by NABH, we have figured out that we need approximately 400 prescriptions to be included in the sample. So 400 prescriptions out of 12,500. Okay, is that clear? Next, we have to see, we have to figure out a method by which we see which 400 samples we are going to take. So we use the statistical sampling method. Okay, because if this sample is statistically significant, then whatever finding we get in our sample, we can say that this finding is applicable to the rest of the population. Okay, so for example, if we, let me give you a hypothetical situation here. For example, if you say that your 25% of the sample do not have signatures of the doctors, then you can say that the 25% of the population also does not have signature of the doctors. So this is the importance of having a statistical sample. Then you can take a statistical sample by having a systematic sampling. This is a method of statistical sampling where you take a systematic sampling, and in the systematic sampling you divide your population size with your sample size. So your population size was 12,500, divide that by your sample size, which is 400. What is the number coming? It comes to about 31.25. That's the number that you get. So if I say that to collect 400 samples out of 12,500, you pick up every 30-second prescription. Will this be a correct statement? Anyone?
So can you come again, please?
Yes. So we have our population size is 12,500. Out of this 12,500, we have to pick up 400 samples.
Okay.
Till to this point, no issue?
No issue.
Now you divide 12,500 with 400. So the number that comes is 31.25.
Okay.
Okay, which means if you pick up every 30th sample or every 32nd sample, it is up to you. You can pick up every 31st sample also.
This is fine, sir. That should be fine.
So you will get 400 samples from the entire 12,500 population, and these 400 will be evenly spread throughout the population. Is that correct? Easy to understand?
Sorry to intervene. When we divide
Yes.
5,000 divided by 3,
No, 5,000. No. Okay, man, please follow what I'm saying. Your population size was 12,500 prescriptions.
Okay.
And you divide that by your sample size of 400.
Okay.
We are taking a sample size of little bigger than the NABH table. Little bigger.
So what is your sample size?
So sample size is 400. I said that. No? So look at this table on the screen. You have the sample size required for 12,000 will be between 385 and 392. These two figures.
Okay.
So 12,500 is your total population. Your sample size is 400. You divide 12,500 with 400. So the number that comes is 31.25. Okay, let me write this down in the presentation itself. Just a moment. I think you can see this while I'm typing it also. Okay, so 12,500 divided by 400, the figure that comes is 31.25. Is this visible? Is this visible?
Yes, sir.
Is this visible?
Yes.
So using this 31.25 figure, if you collect every 31st sample, you will be able to get 400 samples out of 12,500. And your samples will be spread evenly throughout this 12,500. Is this understood?
Yeah, got it.
Great. So using this method, we have now simplified the entire sampling methodology. So you have 12,500 total prescriptions. Those 12,500 prescriptions are usually available in your for hospital system, either as a physical copy or as a the information system, that is your HIS copy. In the order of date, so you start from 1st of, let's say, January, go till 28th of February. These 2 months, you pick up every 31st prescription for your audit. So by this method, you would have picked up about 400 prescriptions to be included in the audit. This is your sample. Is that clear so far?
Sir, sorry to interrupt. I have just one
Yes.
doubt, sir.
Yes.
Sir, the previous table you showed, no, sir. For a screening population of this much should be the sample size. Sir, can you tell the source of that data, sir?
Okay. To state it simply, this table is given in the NABH guidebook. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So this
Yes.
is the source. However, wait. What NABH has done is that they have made our lives simpler by giving this table. The other method is that you use a formula for calculating the statistical sample size. And when you want to use the formula, you will have to talk about the confidence interval and couple of other parameters which may be difficult for each of us to implement on a daily practice. So what NABH has done is they have given you a simple table. You don't have to do any calculation. Just see this table and take the sample size. Is that clear now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Clear, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Great. So based on this method, we have picked up our 400 samples out of the population of 12,500, and these samples are evenly spread throughout the population. Is this clear? You have picked up every 31st sample, so samples are evenly spread. Okay, so we are good till this point. The next is what should be the frequency of prescription audit. So we do prescription audit once in a month, like I said earlier. This should preferably be done by a clinical pharmacologist or a clinical pharmacist. But if you don't have this, any doctor can do this clinic prescription audit. Not audible. Am I not audible?
You're audible, sir.
Okay, so someone said your voice is not there. If you have an audio issue and if others are not finding it, then please log out and log in again quickly. Sometimes the network is the issue. So we need either a clinical pharmacologist or a clinical pharmacist to do this. However, if you don't have these two category of people, then you can use a doctor who understands the prescriptions. Now we will come to those parameters which are to be understood. In case there is no one available, then it can also be done by a multidisciplinary team. So you have in every hospital, the NABH says that you must have a committee called Drugs and Therapeutics Committee, or a committee that is called Pharmacotherapeutics Committee. So this committee can also do the audit. Now, what are the parameters? So these are the parameters. So for every prescription that we have picked up, those 400 prescriptions out of the total sample size, we have to look at legibility, whether it is written in capital letters or not. Why? Because the capital letter writing is the requirement of the Medical Council of India and now the National Medical Commission. It is a legal statutory requirement for OPD prescriptions. Then we say that we are looking at the appropriateness of the drug. Now, this is something that can be checked only by a clinical pharmacologist or by the doctor who understands the pharmacology. So this cannot be done by any particular person, any one person. Sometimes if you don't have a properly trained person, then a committee is a better option to do this audit. Then we see whether the dose was appropriate, whether the frequency was appropriate, and whether the dose was appropriate, the frequency was appropriate, or the route was appropriate. So these three things have to be seen. Appropriateness of these four things. Not three, sorry, four things. Next, we see presence of therapeutic duplication. Okay, two sedatives, two antibiotics of the same group. So two pain medications. So this is basically drug potentiating and overdosing sedation might occur with pain medication duplication. So when we do two medications for pain relief, then sometimes we may have an issue with the drug potentiation or overdosing. So we have to check for therapeutic duplication. This can be done only by a person who knows how to identify a therapeutic duplication. Then we have to check for drug-drug interaction. This is easy to find because nowadays you have apps where you can verify the drug interactions between various drugs. So whether this has been taken into account while writing the prescription. The next is possibility of a food-drug interaction. So some kind of food may interfere with some kind of medications. So when that happens, the medication is not likely to be effective. So the prescription must take care of this. Then this is an example. So sometimes the dairy products interfere with the antibiotics. So they are generally not advised along with antibiotics. The prescriptions should have the name of the patient, the UHID number, and the name of the drug. It should have the strength, dosage, instructions, duration, total quantity of medication, and the name, signature, and registration number of the prescribing doctor. So these are the parameters. The error-prone abbreviation should not have been used. The prescription errors or illegible prescriptions will be obviously identified. And verbal orders. Now this is applicable only for the medication orders in the inpatient files. This is the verbal order is not applicable for OPD prescriptions. This is only for the inpatient files. So when you do medication audit, you include this point, and when you do prescription audit, you don't include this point. So let us review the checkpoints again. So we let me go back to the first slide. Yes. So we look for legibility. We look for appropriateness of drug, dose, frequency, and route of administration. We look for presence of therapeutic duplication. We look for the possibility of drug-drug interaction. We look for food-drug interaction. We look for the name of the patient, the UHID number, and the name of the drug. We look for the strength, dosage, instructions, duration, and the total quantity of medicine, and name, signature, and registration number. So these are the requirements, and then we have to check that the error-prone abbreviations should not have been used. Now, how to find? Someone has asked a question about the error-prone abbreviations. Now, ISMP, that is the Institute for Safe Medication Practice, ISMP. Please go to their website, ismp.org. You will find a list of error-prone abbreviations which should not be used in the hospital. Their list also gives you the rationale why they say that this particular abbreviation should not be used in the hospital. So, and then you have to look for prescription errors like illegible prescriptions or initiated after single strike through or rewritten. So these 2 points are basically for the inpatient files when you do the medication audit. All others are common to both the medication audit as medication order audit as well as prescription audit. So once we have done this audit, we have to do some corrective and preventive action, and this corrective and preventive action should be done based on the analysis of your data. So we will see what is the analysis. So as you can see on your screen, we typically do a Pareto's analysis. Okay. Then based on the Pareto's analysis, we may have found 10 reasons, but we look at 4 important reasons, and we do a root cause analysis for each of those reasons, and then do the intervention, and then do a re-audit to check that the improvement that we carried out in the month of September last year is continuing to be implemented in the hospital. And sometimes we need to carry out training for people so that they are able to meet the requirement of correct prescription. Now this is an example, but okay. So these are the parameters that I told you as a checkpoint. So we have patient ID, UHID number. Patient ID I have written here because we are not supposed to write the name of the patient. So in the data collection form, like I said, it has to be anonymous for the patient. So we don't write patient's name. We just write patient ID. Now this ID can be a simple sequence number. So if you have 12,500 total specimens, total population of the prescriptions, you label them serially from 1 to 12,500, and you pick up every 31st. So you pick up 31st, then you pick up 62nd, and then like that you pick up every 31st prescription, and that is the number that you're going to write here. patient ID. UHID number, of course, will be there. Then you say whether the diagnosis is written, whether it is written in generic name, clear, legible, dated time, all these parameters are there. DDI is drug-drug interaction, therapeutic duplication, and food-drug interaction, use of abbreviation. So like that. And the answer in this data collection sheet for all the questions will be yes or no. Audit typically results in an answer yes, no, not applicable only. There is no fourth option. So like that, you have this data collection sheet. This is typically an Excel sheet or a printed sheet. Both are useful. Then you collect the data like this. So I've given you the format, and now this is the sample data. This is from one of the audits that I carried out a couple of years back. So this is the data that you collect. So you say that whether the UHID number was there, so yes, it was there. Why for yes? So whether the complete diagnosis there, yes, it was there. Drug written in generic name, no. Clear, yes. Now look at this. Whether signed, so out of this 5, 2 it was not signed. Route was not mentioned in any of these. Doctor's registration not mentioned in any of these. So like that, you collect the data. And after you collected the data, you summarize the data. You say that, okay, out of total specimens that you had, in our example 400, in this example on the screen is 13 total samples, basically because I need to show it on one screen only. So out of 13, the UHID number was present in all the prescriptions. So it is yes, which is green colored. So here it is yes. Now, complete diagnosis was written in 11, but not written in 2. So, 2 no, 11 yes, NA 0. Then the drug written in generic name. So, here you are saying that in the 12 prescriptions, it was not written in generic name. In the one prescription, the drug was not applicable because that prescription did not have any drugs in the prescription. It was plain advice or something else. So therefore, it was not applicable. So like that, you summarize the data and then you plot it on a graph like this or a bar chart like this. Can everyone see this bar chart? This is something that is made by the Excel, automated, very simple. You don't have to learn any new technology. It can be made very easily. Now, if you use this kind of a bar graph, this kind of a graphical presentation, then you can very easily see wherever you have more red, that is the number of no's that you have. So it is a lot of no's are here. So this is the data. So wherever there is more red, then you say, okay, these are the major problem areas. And wherever the less red is less, then you can say, okay, this is the lesser problem area. So like that, you pick up these big red ones, and then you do the intervention, and then you do the correction, and then you do the re-audit. So is that understood? If there are questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Sir, how about representing this in the pie chart? Then we will know the percentage along with the red colors, right? So we can quantify it also.
Correct, madam. But yes, but madam, what will happen is then you will end up making how many pie charts? How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 pie charts you have to make.
No, sir, in one pie chart only, the total number of what
Yes,
is that
so,
which is deviating, only that you can represent and
yes,
and
madam.
do it,
Okay,
right?
madam, data representation is not an issue. Why I have chosen this particular method of data representation is because in this I don't have to do a separate Pareto's analysis. Just by looking at it, I know which are the 6 major problem areas out of total 17. So I can see all the reds are the major problem areas. That is the benefit of this. You can use pie chart, you can use any other method of graphical representation. No issues at all, absolutely. Ultimately, that is only a representation of the data. The data doesn't change at all. It is the graphical presentation that changes. So you can use pie chart by all means. Yes, definitely.
Sir,
But here it is also, yes, madam.
sorry to tell you, my intention was representing it in the pie chart. We can do inference of the data along with that interpretation of the data becomes more easier. That is why
So if you find that useful, please go ahead. Please do so. Please do so. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay. So please do so. If you find some other method of data representation is good enough for you and it is helping you understand the data better, please go ahead. There is nothing. I mean, we are not discussing data representation here. We are discussing that we must, when we do the audit, we must find out those prominent causes which are large in proportion, and which, by correcting those, you will be able to make a large scale improvement. So that is the purpose of showing, telling you about the Pareto's analysis. We can also do a proper Pareto's analysis applying the 80-20 rule, and then find out which are the ones where we need to intervene. We can also do a proper analysis. There's no doubt about it. Yes, that's actually the correct method. Any more questions? All those who require the PowerPoint presentations must give me the email ID so that I can give you the this presentation can be sent. Now there is a message here. Is there any medication order given by NABH? Mrinal Jariwala, madam. What is the intent of this question? I mean, if you can just state your question, unmute your mic and do that. Mrinal Jariwala, your question? I didn't understand. So if you can explain your question, then I'll answer that. Mrinal Jariwala, can you hear me? I don't know whether he can hear, but I did not understand the question. I am not able to answer this. So you'll have to pardon me, because either you explain the question, then only you get the answer. I mean, it is not possible for me to guess what the question is. Anyone else has any other question?
What about the remarks column?
Which remarks, madam?
In your format, you had the last column as remarks. Once you have those remarks, depending upon the situation and the reason for not being compliant with the thing, so taking those remarks also, we need to understand why it is not complete, what is the reason, and then only we can bring up corrective action and preventive action.
Absolutely. Yes, madam, absolutely. So in the remark, if some significant remarks have come, which you find that these remarks also need to be included in the analysis, then they will also be included in the analysis. Without any doubt, you are absolutely right. That the remarks will also be analyzed. That is the point that you have made, and it's an absolutely correct point. That remarks will also be analyzed. Yes. Yes. Any more questions? No. So if there are no more questions, then I think there are a lot of email. I mean, a lot of people have given their email IDs. The presentation will be sent. Last week's presentation was already dispatched to people who wanted it. I mean, if you want presentations, that can be given. That's not an issue. Okay. So if there are no questions, then thank you very much.